how are you? Welcome on in.
Podcast by George.
Another podcast by George.
Podcast by George. Border to border. Coast to coast. Podcast by George.
Well, hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on in to another podcast by George. Got a big show today, or we had a big show planned anyway. It may still come off. I hope that you saw the promo for today's show because it was this guy, folks. Chirs Gloninger is coming on the podcast by George live line in stunning Technicolor, if he can, because he's in the Boston area. He's the Iowa weatherman that left the Hawkeye State, left the heartland, went back to his native Northeast, hit the deck out there just in time for massive flooding, all kinds of catastrophic weather. And this morning, they're being affected by storms, and most notably, that warthog from hell that's moving up the Atlantic right now, Hurricane Lee. So it knocked out his everything but his cell. He's got no Wi-Fi. He's got no electricity. He sent me a cell message that he's down and out right now. He's going to try to join us here during the course of the show. This may be, kind of be a short one with just me because he is scheduled to come back on. And if he can get it, get the power company to play ball with him. I think he's fine. I don't think there's any danger out there because of the storm, but it is an inconvenience for today's show, to say the least. Okay, so how are we going to begin? Well, we should begin this way. I'm going to bring up the great Lee Camp, who's going to be on my show Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the 20th of September. He's scheduled to come back on. Everybody knows I talk about Lee Camp a lot on the show. I like to reference his book here, Bullet Points and Punchlines. This thing's a few years old now, but it's really good. I just want to read this one paragraph. Now, I'm not going to sit here and read aloud to you for any great period of time just because we don't have Chris on the live line. I hate it when people read on live streams. But anyway, this is just a paragraph. Listen to what Lee Camp says. He says, I don't just mean there should be a report every a couple of hours about climate change by our bloviating bullhorns of mainstream news. I don't mean once a day you should mention to a friend that Al Gore seems vaguely douchey, but probably has a point. I mean, climate change should be all we're thinking about. It should be a major factor in every conversation, every job, every TV show, every humor column, every tweet, every clever t-shirt slogan, and every fortune cookie message. Climate change should be everything. And I agree. And as you know, if you watch my show, it's a big deal with me, and I have it on here all the time in this particular format. I do it by talking about the big three on the PBG: climate, war, and healthcare. And climate is at the top of the list for a reason. I believe that we're living in a 2020 world. And by the way, did you see the great Cornel West that was on my show this week? He was on talking about his presidential aspirations and his Green Party candidacy. It was great stuff. We got a lot of good questions and comments about that. And he particularly liked that 2020 thing. He told me several times, even when we went off the air, he says, man, that's great. I love that 2020 reference. I said, well, you can use it, Doc. That's an original from Podcast by George. 2020 world, 20 minutes. We could be dead from an accidental strike due to a nuclear weapon, maybe on purpose, but accidentally, or 20 years, or it looks like less at times. We're all going to be gone. We're going to have our asses in a sling anyway because of climate. So that's the 2020 part of this. And that's why climate is at the top of my list. The nuclear strike, yeah, it could happen. But the climate thing looks to me like it's going to happen. I mean, we better make preparations. We better get ready. Let me take this off the screen here and bring me back up full screen because I want to talk about a couple of things while we're waiting to see if Chris can join us. And if he can't, this is not in his neck of the woods, obviously. I hope that you saw this reporting. This is from the Associated Press. An aid group says 11,300 are dead in Libyan city. My God, again, catastrophic, unprecedented, biblical apocalyptic. I don't know what you want to call these weather occurrences that are going on around the globe. And that's what has happened in Libya. And that's just part of it. And I take issue with the way that this is being reported, not on the death toll, but the way that the climate is being reported and the way that it gets reported oftentimes in the mainstream media. Here's from NPR. Climate change exacerbates deadly floods worldwide. And there, if you can look in the photo, you can see from my circle, those used to be homes and buildings. That was a populated area. That's the middle of a populated area. That's where the water rushed in and where the water rushed out, folks. And that's what's left behind. Catastrophic floods in eastern Libya killed at least 5,100 people. Now, this is from a few days ago. It's double that now, according to local authorities. The disaster comes after a string of deadly floods around the world this month, from China to Brazil to Greece. In every case, extremely heavy rain was to blame. The enormous loss of life on multiple continents reinforces the profound danger posed by climate-driven rainstorms and the need for better warming systems, or let me get that right, better warning systems and infrastructure to protect the most vulnerable populations. Okay, I highlighted that. And the need for better warning systems and infrastructure to protect the most valuable populations. Well, you want to say, how can you argue with that? That really isn't what we need. We need to do something immediately to mediate the problem, to reverse the effects of this climate change, because it's bad, it's getting worse, and there's a scale here. I want to show this. I mean, my God, take a look at this, folks. This is climate warming. And the little skull and crossbones there, the Jolly Roger, that's mine added in there. But this is from NOAA, and it shows what's happened. And I drew a line there. Basically, that's me. That's from my lifetime. That's basically the boomer generation that you're seeing in that diagonal line. Look at the trend. Look at the trending line. And then you may not be able to see it real well, but the last line is this year. Look at the zoom. Look at how that thing has gone up exponentially in just this year, when we're supposed to be doing something to reduce this climate situation. If that continues, that's where the Jolly Roger comes into play. That's where the skull and crossbones is going to be what used to be the human species. I think it cannot continue like that. And we're seeing the beginnings of it now. All around the globe with these catastrophic weather occurrences. It's all because of that. And I had a little chart here that you can take a look at around the globe, bringing up everything from in the bottom left there. You'll see Hawaii. Hurricane Idalia is shown on this map. The contiguous U.S. Situation with record global warming. The Caribbean, Spain, unprecedented. Each one of these has a little something to say, but the Arctic and Antarctic sea ice extent is the thing that they're talking about there. And Chris is going to talk about that. If we don't get him on today, we'll get him on very shortly. Hopefully, maybe even over the weekend, but early next week, to talk about the water temperatures in the oceans and this Arctic situation. He's really focused, keying in on that. And of course, that's top of mind right now because of this bad boy. I mean, take a look at this thing. This is Hurricane Lee. This is from a day or two ago. This was where it was at, and it's scheduled to move up the coast now. And I've got a little tracker here. I'll play this, and you can see it. We'll come right back after this. Won't take very long. You can see how this thing is tracking. Yeah, so yeah, there it goes. So it's out in the Atlantic. It's not angling towards the shore in the United States. It's going to affect the Northeast up there and around that tip of Maine into Canada, and it may decrease in strength. But the thing that's remarkable about this is it's not the wind speed or anything. Look at the size of this thing. And people will say, well, yeah, there's been big hurricanes before. Yeah, there have, but it seems like they're all this way now. This thing is massive. It is huge. Is this normal? Nah, it ain't normal. And I got to think that it's related, folks. All right, good. I think that's pretty much most of what I had that I wanted to go through today. I did want to show that situation in Libya with that rising death toll and call out the media a little bit for its reporting, the way that it tries to lull us into this false sense of security. Climate change makes heavy rains more common, even in arid places where the total amount of precipitation is small. That's because a hotter atmosphere can hold more moisture. This part of it isn't exactly rocket science, but it's something that people have a hard time understanding. And I know Chirs Gloninger, for instance, talks about this all the time. A hotter atmosphere holds more moisture, making these devastating floods more likely. He talks about a drought flood cycle. Where I'm at, it's kind of drought. But his point is it's going to cycle. And when it does, it'll be a flood and it'll be coming down on these hard packed grounds, including here in the heartland, creating this massive flooding circumstance. I mean, it's coming, folks. You can dribble a ball across my basketball across my front yard. That's how hard the ground is. And when the rain comes, it's bad. Everyday rainstorms, as well as bigger storms such as hurricanes, are increasingly dangerous as a result because of this drought flood cycle. In Libya, a storm called Daniel swept in from the Mediterranean over the weekend, resulted in that jaw-dropping 16 inches of rain in just 24 hours, according to the World Meteorological Organization. It's far too much water for the ground to absorb, especially in an arid climate where the soil is dry and less able to suck up water quickly. Okay, and I'm going to say one more thing, and some people are going to disagree with this probably, particularly the neocons and the neo-libs, because I don't think they were too dumb. I know they were in on it. That situation in Libya, you're going to hear about how they didn't have proper infrastructure, how they didn't have updated dams and erosion control and all those types of things. You want to know one of the major reasons why that is? Because we bombed the shit out of them. We've been blowing up Libya now for a better part of a decade or two, and those people just couldn't catch up. Their government is really struggling, virtually non-existent. It used to be kind of one of the African democracies that people pointed toward. They used to say, Libya's got it going on. They got the right idea, but they haven't for a long time. Bombs will do that. And we're the ones, the United States, that's responsible for it. And we're the ones that need to step up and help those people mightily, because that wolf is at our door, folks, and we put it there. Okay, great. I just wanted to do that so the people that were tuning in would be able to see something here. With Chris not able to join us, he's a great guy. He'll be coming on here. I know that you get to see him once in a while. He's on MSNBC and CNN and the networks. He left the heartland here on his local television station after something came out of the weeds on the internet at him. Some person came at him on the internet and threatened his life or his family or something like that. And he just packed up and went back to where he's from, the Northeast, and who can blame him? And it was partially because of that, but I think more than anything, what he really wanted to do was address this climate issue. He's a meteorologist. He's a weatherman. He was great doing this. The guy's won, I think, 3 Emmys doing local weather. But I think he's come to the understanding and belief, just like I have, that if we don't do something, PDQ, it's going to be game over. And that's why every time you tune in Podcast by George, folks, you're going to be able to see something having to do with the big three, because they're all related. Climate, war, and healthcare will always be front and center on Podcast by George. Now, stay tuned next week for sure. Lee Camp is coming on. I might put up some shorts, some quick takes, I call them, on the interview with Cornel West. That was really good. But I'm going to sign off for now, folks. And before I go, I just want to tell you, if you enjoy seeing Chirs Gloninger when he comes back on, if you enjoy seeing me and the topics that I cover, the big three on the PBG, subscribe for free. Go to podcastbygeorge.com, podcastbygeorge.com. There you can find the platforms that my show appears on. The live streams and video are on Facebook and YouTube. Click the little icons there on podcastbygeorge.com, and it'll take you to that home. Don't try to find us by going to Google and searching, or I mean, that takes forever and it's not that easy. Go to my home webpage and do it from there. And then also, if you just like the audio and you're thinking, God, I'd just like to listen to this on iTunes, go to podcastbygeorge.com. The iTunes icon is there. Click that. It'll take you right there, and you can subscribe and be notified every time we post or upload a new show, just like today's. Also, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app. I think Deezer shut down. Or no, Stitcher, I think, shut down. I think Deezer's on there. There's several others, including, Amazon Music and other places where you can find the show. But folks, that's going to do it. That's going to wrap it up. I'm sorry Chris couldn't come on, but we'll do it again here very soon. That's all there is. And there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.